Hey all, new day, new verses as we continue on into Matthew 27. Today we are doing verses 57 to 66 right through to the end of the chapter. And I wanted to do both these sections today, the burial and the guardian of the tomb, because they feel like two sides of ways of thinking. And so let's dig into it. I think you'll see what I mean. Here we go. It's quite beautiful. And I want to share it as I'm being given it. So let's dig into it. 57. As evening approached, Joseph, a rich man from Arimathea, who had become a follower of Jesus, went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. And Pilate issued the order to release him. Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a long sheet of clean linen cloth. He placed it in his own new tomb, which he had carved out of the rock. Then he rolled a great stone across the entrance and left. Both Mary of Magdala and the other Mary were sitting across from the tomb, watching. The next day, on Shabbat, the leading priests and Pharisees, went to see Pilate. They told him, "Sir, we remember what that deceiver once said. When he was still alive, after 3 days I will raise from the dead. So we request that you seal the tomb until the third day. This will prevent his disciples from coming and stealing his body, and then telling everyone he was raised from the dead. If this happens, we'll be worse off than we were at first." Pilate replied, "Take guards and secure it as best you can." So sealed the tomb and posted guards to protect it. The reason I say there are two sides of this is because you see the burial of Jesus treated with reverence. There is mourning there, the sitting and watching and sitting Shiva almost, this being there with the body, just pain of the loss. Meanwhile, on the other side of the things, on the day of Sabbath, when they're not supposed to be doing this kind of stuff anyway, within reason, they go right to Pilate and say, well, we don't want him to be seen as raised from the dead. Jesus' actual followers here are mourning and they're weeping and they're filled with sorrow. And the people who have been listening to Jesus but not hearing a word he has to say are now going, well, you have to seal the tomb. We don't want his followers going through with the whole he'll be raised in 3. They're thinking in a way to keep their power, to keep the attention of the crowd. They're not realizing that his actual followers, Mary of Magdala, Mary his mother, the mother of the sons of Zebedee, all of his disciples are the disciple whom Jesus loved, all sitting looking at this painful moment. They're not thinking, oh, how are we going to make this look? They're thinking, we've just lost the person we love most. They're in a place of dashed hopes. And I find it curious that the world that has no interest in hearing Jesus is the one that actually paid attention to, I'll be back. And it's hard to pay attention to the I'll be back when you're in a place of grief. It's hard to hold to the fact that he is coming home, that he will see to it, that he is greater than the trials, the tribulations, and the struggles when we're in the middle of them. It is difficult to fully believe that he is God over it when lost in the valley. And I think that's these two things here that show that are quite lovely. Because it makes me think from Pilate's perspective. Pilate's like, okay, whatever. Grant this request, done with this petty crap, washed my hands of this entire thing. And yet part of his brain's probably like, 3 days, huh? Well, I saw what happened. Maybe. Go, post your guards, because I want to see what happens. And so in a way, you almost have 3 perspectives. Those who don't believe but are quoting the word as an insult. Those who do believe but are in a place of mourning, and so it's hard for them to push through. And those who, and Pilate, who's sitting here going, kind of curious, let's see. And I find it curious, these 3 different perspectives on this one event. And yet each one of them, when brought together, can offer something beautiful. Grief at the fact that there is pain. The word says that you weep with those who are weeping and you're joyful with those who are joyful. You share it, and empathy is a gift. And so it's interesting that we have this place of it is okay to weep and be grateful. It is okay to have these moments of, and I'm not talking the Pharisee kind of joy here. This is where it's a parallel in idea. Because the parallel in idea is it's okay to give everything to the Lord. It's important to. In fact, we're told to, commanded to lay it down. Because how can you have an intimate relationship if you're holding on to things that are walls? How can you have a deep personal connection when you're putting up barriers? When you're rolling stones in the way, like the Pharisees are. Because I would imagine there were a couple of disciples that were holding out to belief that we'll see him in 3 days. For all we know, that is why both Marys were sitting there waiting, watching, saying, well, he said he'd be back. Okay then. He said it, I believe it. A kind of trust, the devotion. We saw it before with Mary and Martha, when they were both at the house, and one was cooking away, and said, well, Jesus, is it fair that she's not helping me, that Mary isn't helping me cook? And he says to Martha, she has decided what she wants, and it will not be taken from her. This is the kind of devotion. Because in these two sections, and before we close for the week, it strikes me as this beautiful place where God sees the weeping. He sees the jeering of the world. He sees the constant abuse we go through, and he'll see to it. This place of reminder that sorrow only lasts for the night. Joy comes with the morning. That is Isaiah. And it may be a long-ass night, but joy comes with the morning. And if you've had one, you know why I use that expression. Not as a flippant profanity, but just be sitting there. If we're honest, if we've been through one of those nights that just doesn't seem to end, where the ship is constantly tossed about, where we feel like we've been told to walk on water for so much that our feet can barely stand, when we are too tired to keep going, Jesus knows. He knows those grief moments where we don't care to do anything but just hold to the Lord because everything else is sorrow and pain. When depression tries to overtake and we say, no, I will hold to the Lord. So, when I was going to do these separate, I first looked at Joseph and I'm like, oh, a rich man from Arimathea. Yeah, see, look, there's the Bible. There's the Bible, the word saying it's perfectly fine to be affluent or it's perfectly fine to have resources and money. How you use it, what's your heart for it? Because you look at the places where, oh, the rich man, go and sell all your stuff. Well, yeah, because his heart's bound to this stuff. Where is your heart? You can only serve one master. If it's not your master, if God is your master, then the resources are just resources. But I want to look deeper here. I want to look to both Marys and the fact that they're sitting across from the tomb watching, waiting, keeping watch, being there. I want to observe the fact that while the Pharisees have just put him to death, they're still in the mindset of scheming. They're still in the mindset of, well, see, we need to make sure that every move is counter-moved and every plan out is done out. And they're trying to think like life is a chess game where they have to move and outmove their people unless they're taken off the board as someone else's pawn. And they're missing entirely just the simple relationship. The sitting, the watching, the waiting. The holding out the candle with the oil until he returns. This belief that, yeah, we've seen the two. We've chosen. We chose to wait upon the Lord until he returns. We choose to wait like both Marys do. Like the parable of the bridesmaids who had brought enough oil. We choose to wait. We choose to wait upon the Lord, who will renew our strength. We don't just say this, we actually believe it. That is what makes us different. We do not see each other as pawns in someone else's chess game or on our own chess game. We are clay shaped by the potter's hand, tools molded for his use in shaping and bringing forth the kingdom. We're not playing this silly game. Because it's interesting even there if you want to look at it deeper. A Game of Thrones being played by the Pharisees and by Pilate. We want to make sure we have our authority, but we're under their authority. We want to make sure we play the right game, and so everybody gets to be. And they're sitting here playing this game in the meantime of the burial of the actual king. Well, we want to make sure we have this much power over the people and this much affluence, and we want to make sure we have this much prestige, and we want to make sure many people follow our word at every time. They're too busy focusing on playing the world game that they miss entirely the king they've been praying for their entire lives. I mean, these are Pharisees and Sadducees, sages, Scribes, those who devote their lives to maintaining the word, to keeping it, who get so lost in the letter of it they miss the spirit of it entirely, who get so lost in playing the world's game and calling religion faith. Now please understand, I'm not talking against the church, the body of Christ. I'm speaking about the religion that forms under every subject. Science, different faiths, all around the world, these places of a religion, a body of structures and laws that if you do not follow the letter of the law perfectly, we will cast you out. We will cancel you. We will do away with you because you spoke against the holy doctrine. That's religion. Because cults say you can't ask questions. God says ask. God says test me and see. This is the difference I speak of. Because the Pharisees and the Sadducees here, they may be devoted to the word, but they're not treating it like the living text it is, that it reads us. I am grateful for the dedication of making sure that every letter continues on so that we have our version of Isaiah today accurate to this version of Isaiah that was scribed several hundred years before Christ. I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful that God used them. I'm saddened that they want to play the game. I'm saddened when we choose to play the game as humans. I'm saddened when we decide to chase after the beast rather than wait upon the Lord. Instead of standing firm in belief and saying, no, my God is greater, we let ourselves be stalked by the beast until we are consumed by it. We need to hold to him. I did Genesis allusion on that last one. But this is what I see here. This is what I see here as the invitation before not just the resurrection, the beginning of chapter 28, the last chapter for Matthew. I'm seeing it as an invitation before he comes home. Before the second coming, when the options here are you going to scheme and guard an empty tomb? Or are you going to wait upon the Lord? Remember that Friday's disappointment is an invitation for Sunday's empty tomb. Remember that the shadow of the valley of death is only a pass-through place. Because it's that we pass through it, not that we live there. Do we remember what it says in John? It's John 1:6, that the light exists and the darkness cannot put it out. That the darkness has never understood it. Speaking immensely that the darkness does not understand us. We are set apart, we are different. We should be living it, acting it. Sitting there, watching and waiting. Waiting upon the Lord to return. Lamps full of oil. Praising the God who was and is to come, who saves the remnant, who is gracious and glorious, and wonderful and merciful, and tender and loving. This is the invitation that we see echoed not just, well, they're doing it here in the Word, but us now in this moment. Shall we wait upon the Lord, who will renew our strength, so that we shall mount up on wings like eagles, that we shall run and not grow weary, walk and not grow weary, run and not tire. That we shall mount up on eagles and soar, that we shall truly live. Or do we want to continue playing the human game, where people are pawns, where the memory of a life is based on the blood you waged and the terror you wrought? We can trust that the Lord is greater and that he will use us for whatever that looks like. Or we can try and live up to be Alexander the Great, a man who may have conquered the known world, but he did so spilling more blood than most people will fathom. Alexander the not-so-original, with as many names, are called Alexandria. And don't get me wrong, God used that too. God used that too. so that Greek would spread to the world, so that these ideas could be understood. That's what the New Testament is written in. God used that too, just like he used Pharaoh. I would rather be a willing tool of the Lord that helps knock down giants and topple walls, that trusts and waits and knows that the potter shapes the clay, not the other way around, than be somebody who's willing to spread or shed innocent blood just for the sake of being the top dog for but a moment. Those are the options. Because when we're in the world and we're going about our day to day and we're doing what God calls us to do in any of those forms, those are the options there too. We say, well, no, I'm not going to act like the world. Oh, just take a little out of the till. Nobody does. Or everybody does. I don't. Nobody should. We here live set apart because we have been set apart by grace. His grace. His mercy. His kindness. We are made different because he made us different. So let us wait upon the Lord, knowing that he will return. Let us praise the Lord for consistency, knowing that when he comes home, he'll see to it. Let us be found in a place of praise full of oil, ready for the bridegroom. Because we won't always get to screw around. Playtime of deciding, do I want to be like the world or not be like the world? That's going to come to an end pretty quick here. We got to choose. He chose us, so are we going to choose him? Or are we going to turn our backs? Having an open relationship, trust, and faith, saying, you'll see to it. I don't know how. I just know you will, because you said you would. So you will because you said you would. Trust. Childlike trust. As we wrap up today with these last two verses in 27, these last sections rather. Don't spend your life guarding an empty tomb. Chase after the one who walked free of it. The Son who has set us free. Realize that God will see to it. Realize that as much as the world tries to play its game, tries to stand on top of each other, tries to win the golden crown at the top of the Tower of Babel, it all comes down. That God's purposes, God's truth, God's plan will always prevail. His way will always succeed. So put as many guards as you want, post as many of as you want, put as many seals as you want over your heart. God will move them. God will make a way if you trust him. As the world puts those walls up, then he takes them down. Trust him to be God, and you will see him move. Wait upon him, and you will truly live. Don't hold on to the past. Don't hold on to the pain. Don't bury it all. Praise that he rips open seals, that he breaks chains, that he is worthy to do it. And he is good to do it. More than that, praise him that he does do it. Because without his grace, we are not free. But with his grace, and with him, all things are possible. So let us wait upon the Lord. Let us trust, because he'll see us through, no matter what the world looks like. War, conquest, famine, death. Well, we know those are coming. We know those have been a tragic day in human history. We know they're the first 4 seals. That God will break the rest. Come home, and we shall sing praises forever, because he has set us truly free. Embrace the freedom he has given you. Walk into the light, my friend, as he loves you so much, and he will see you through. I will see you guys next week as we pick up into chapter 28, the last sections of Matthew. It's been a great time with Matthew, and as we wrap it up, probably the end of next week, we're going to be digging into James. I'm looking forward to it. May his favor be upon you. Know that you are loved. Know that he will see you through and that you need not fear, because he is greater, because he loves you so much, and because he will never let you go. So turn to him. Run to the arms that have been holding you since before you were born, and truly live. I'll see you then.